71% of the surface of the Earth. It has an average depth of 12,100 feet. It holds 97% of the water on our planet, and an estimated 94% of the wildlife. And yet 80% of it at least is still unexplored. Despite all of the other advances we've made in science and knowledge, that figure is pretty startling. So why have we seemingly left the ocean alone? On the face of it, there are a few reasons, but most notably, there's the money and the danger. Ocean research simply isn't as well funded as many other scientific fields are, and certainly not as well backed as space travel is. And without any especially notable spikes in the cash that gets spent, it's proven slow going over the years to build a foundation for innovation. Missions into the ocean are so often viewed as isolated attempts, or even as quirky, foolhardy endeavors. And it's rare that any one mission garners significant coverage. In history, since World War II, we have the life and times of Jacques Cousteau, a handful of mostly infamous US Navy schemes such as Sea Lab, some even shadier experiments carried out in the Soviet Union, and that's about it. And while there is a growing private sector, it's almost always the case that the only dives we hear about are the disastrous ones resulting in loss of life, such as the OceanGate Titan submersible implosion in June 2023. Which takes us to the danger. And the ocean is clearly full of it. At the very deepest part, Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, you need to withstand more than 1,000 times the pressure at sea level. The water is literally denser down there, and if you were to be piloting a sub, you'd be doing so in pitch-black darkness. In many ways, it might even be said that the ocean floor is a more dangerous environment than outer space is. Outside of a vessel, world record divers have reached depths of just more than 1,000 feet, or less than 10% of the average depth of the sea as a whole. In contrast, today's astronauts can perform multiple spacewalks per mission, surviving outside of their vessel with far fewer problems. Perhaps part of the challenge is that in some senses, space doesn't really change once you get beyond Earth's atmosphere and out into it. The ocean gets worse and worse the further down you go. And yet, according to reports, it is or should be possible to overcome the hurdles to regularly reach the sea floor. Since the late 2010s, various environmental groups, including Greenpeace, have led campaigns against deep-sea mining. Considered a growing strategy in ocean mining, companies and some governments are said to be planning to commit to it in a big way in the future because of the resources that it could provide. For example, deep-sea mining has been touted as a potential method of harvesting the minerals and metals needed to make the batteries in electric vehicles. New sources of things like lithium, cobalt, aluminum, nickel, and zinc could all be found in this way, but it comes at a potentially huge environmental cost. Deep-sea mining would instantly disrupt the local ecosystems, while reported plumes of pollution generated by the process could spread and linger for tens or even hundreds of miles around. The incongruous noise and light of the mining could drive animals away, or else lure them to danger, while the fundamental act of stripping the ocean of its resources could, according to campaigners, trigger food chain collapse. The debate over deep-sea mining is sure to rumble for years to come. But take away the questionable environmental ethics of it all, and it's a debate that does at least prove one thing: exploring the ocean is apparently possible. No matter that around 80% of it is currently unexplored, the sad truth is that if there's money to be made, irrespective of the consequences, then humankind will suddenly find a way. Deep-sea mining would involve the use of remote robotics and artificial intelligence in various guises. Much as we send rovers to the surface of other planets rather than people, most deep-sea mining strategies involve employing machines on the sea floor to dig and siphon what the controlling companies need. It's cutting-edge innovation. It's just a shame that it's only now coming into play for a practice that could spark ecological ruin. So why not more widely employ aspects of that technology, but simply to investigate the ocean rather than to ransack it? While the data does vary, in general, within the last decade, we've gone from less than 10% of the ocean floor being mapped to about 25%. A cynical view might be that that sudden acceleration is again all to do with the modern realization that money can be made from the sea floor. But nevertheless, the increase in mapping has improved our knowledge of what's down there, even if the ocean is still thought to be home to more undiscovered species than anywhere else on Earth. How different would the world be, though, if we did send the sort of rovers that do already exist, but not to relentlessly mine? How much could we have already learned if world governments had backed this kind of tech above, say, space travel? If the recent push for deep-sea mining is anything to go by, it would appear that companies and the authorities are aware that ocean exploration can be done. It's just that they haven't been driven to do it until the idea of mining for minerals was put on the table. In recent times, for example, the British government has been criticized by groups like Greenpeace for its apparent reluctance to ban deep-sea mining. Many nations, including France and Germany, have supported calls for a ban or a pause, but not the UK, or the majority of others. In 2023, the International Seabed Authority reinstated a moratorium against deep-sea mining, although it's set to be debated again and again by the ISA on an annual basis. Meanwhile, and while it's not directly linked, we can see just how undervalued the ocean has historically been when we compare the budget of NOAA, America's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, with that of NASA. In 2023, NOAA received just less than $7 billion. For NASA, it was just more than $25 billion. If roles were reversed, could we already have seen major ocean breakthroughs to rival the moon landing or the James Webb Space Telescope? Perhaps, but in the here and now, we're still just trying to find our way in the literal abyss. What do you think should happen next? How should we view and treat the ocean in the future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. For now, it would appear that we are at something of a fork in the road when it comes to ocean exploration. The technology is there, as demonstrated by the various proposals for deep-sea mining, but is the backing there unless there's an immediate return? Would world governments be interested if tackling the ocean didn't top their lithium reserves, or afford them an edge in general in the race for future resources? If missions to explore were supported, if the money that is being considered for mining was instead channeled into less environmentally destructive plans, then we might very quickly learn so much more about the sea. There are surely new species ready to be seen, perhaps massive deep water creatures that we've never before set eyes upon. Whole chapters of new research just waiting to be made. But that's why the government might be hiding the truth about the ocean.